Yeah, that
Uh,
I heard you say that. And
oh yeah, I do
I've
say
been
that. I
waiting
do
for
say
third.
that in the album. Yeah. My
Uh,
daughter's supposed to be here any minute. Actually, I think she might be here now. I don't do too many podcasts or interviews or things like. Hey, all right. Sorry, my little one is here. She has 3 features on the album.
oh, no worries. Might as well get her on, right?
Yeah. You want to say hi?
And
Okay.
what is her name?
This is Kita. Say hi,
Hello.
Bubba. All
Hi,
right.
meet you.
All right. I'm gonna be doing a little talking here. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find a match.
Okay. You can come in here whenever you need. Okay.
Just trying to find some clothes.
What you got is fine. That's fine.
How old is
Not
she?
too long. She's 5.
5.
I'm five today. Actually, I'm this many.
Not yet.
Yes, I am.
Whole hand. Remember? All right. There we go.
This many.
Um. Yeah. The grind never stops, man. You know.
Trust
Straight
me.
up.
I know what that's like. I quit my job in September. So yeah, it's like, when are you not working? Right.
Yeah. For real. And now I'm doing this work from home. Yeah. Switch up the game.
All right. Let me make sure I'm recording.
You record now?
I will be. I've got a mixer here. So I just want to make
Okay.
that's
One second.
Yep. For anybody watching on YouTube, I can see the questions. If you have questions, put them in the comments in the chat, and we can answer those as we go along. We're going to be talking to Sirius Blvck. Yeah, so we'll be talking about his new album. Pretty excited. All right, we got somebody watching. That's great.
Yeah, man. She keeps me on my toes.
Oh, I can't even imagine. I don't have kids yet, so I'm just like waiting for the day when it happens and my life just turns upside down.
Yeah, definitely. It'll 180 your ass for sure.
So we're talking to Sirius Blvck. I'm recording already. So thank you for spending some time with us on Friday. Definitely want to dive into the new album, Godspeed, but want to get a little bit of background for people who may not be familiar with you as a musician or who you are, what you do here in Indianapolis. If you can, introduce yourself, and we'll just dive right in.
Yeah, for sure. I'll go by Sirius Blvck. I'm a creative and artist in Indianapolis for about 10 years now. I mainly do hip hop right now, but I grew up, playing in punk and hardcore bands in Indianapolis when I moved here from Gary. And from there, I've just kind of moved through different facets of the music scene throughout the years. And now kind of focusing my attention on New Hands, which is a new venture I started with my partner. It's a nonprofit dedicated to providing equity for Indianapolis artists and creatives here, and also providing unique platforms for us to express ourselves. So yeah, so that's been my focus right now, and I just dropped a new album called Godspeed.
That's awesome. And this nonprofit that you're working on, where did the whole concept for that come about?
Yeah, so I've been organizing and doing just throwing shows and doing benefit shows and things like that throughout the years. And I've always done that. And at a certain point, I realized, when I started getting into the nonprofit world, I realized that for so many years I was already doing community work without ever even calling it community work.
Mhm.
So from there, we just decided to kind of make it official. It started with New Hands Festival, which is a venture between us and a DIY art installated music venue in Indianapolis called Healer. We partnered together to create New Hands Festival, which is a 2-day, all ages music benefit, benefiting local nonprofits in the city who are on the ground floor. Last year, our first year, we raised money for ICESA, which is the Indianapolis Coalition to End Sexual Assault, and a nonprofit called Ascent 121, who focus on long-term trauma recovery for teens coming out of trafficking. And that was an organization that my mom has worked with for many years. So I was very familiar with them. So we just decided to kind of make it official. And once we realized that we were already doing community work and active, in our neighborhoods, we just wanted to kind of do it right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of our goal right now. Yeah.
Have you always been like a community focused individual, like giving back or just being involved? Or did that at some point?
Not necessarily. I think I just wanted to kind of throw shows and congregate people. And if, we knew somebody was going through something and we wanted to raise some money for somebody, I was happy to always organize it. I'm the oldest of 6 kids. So, I've always had a lot of responsibility since I was a little tyke,
Yeah.
So it's nothing new to me, but I definitely think that played a part for sure.
Oh, I can imagine. When did you move to Indy from Gary?
When I was 15.
15. Okay. And what brought you out here?
My mom's and my pop's divorced, and my mom rented she rented a fucking, it wasn't even a U-Haul. It was like a straight semi truck. She packed everything in that bitch and moved us down to Indianapolis same day.
So you were 15, and were you doing music in Gary as well, or is that something that started when you got to Indianapolis?
Yeah, I was doing music back then. I started writing poetry when I was 7 or 8, and from 2nd grade to 5th grade, I won first place in all the poetry fairs. And then I went on to do poetry slams later. And then I started getting serious with music when I moved to Indianapolis, but I'd been writing for quite a few years at that point.
What is it about? But poetry is an interesting thing, man. You know what I mean? Like it can be so surface level, like a poem, you just think about it, it's like roses are red, violets are blue type shit, right? Like it can be very sing-songy, just like words have to rhyme for it to be a poem. But on this other level, it's just like what Kendrick Lamar says, right? Like there's levels to this thing. And so with poetry as well, you can go super, super deep and just it's an onion. There's layers and layers and layers to the things that you can be saying and how you say them. How did you get into poetry?
Shel Silverstein.
Really?
Shel Silverstein is how I got into poetry. When I was 10 years old, I entered a contest. Well, my 3rd grade teacher, Ms. Brisky, entered me into a contest, and it was in Highlights magazine. And they chose 10 poems across the country or something like that, or however many poems across the country. And I was one of them that got chosen. And I got to meet Shel Silverstein in '98. And he came to Gary Public Library and signed the books for us and shit. Yeah, so that's kind of where that journey started with me, and then from there, just kind of, snowballed.
Do you think if that hadn't happened, that your life would have been different? I know that's kind of a hyperbolic question, but being so young and getting to meet somebody like that, has to have a huge impact on your life.
Oh yeah, that was my idol. I had every single one of his books, as every kid did back in the day, or a lot of kids back then did back in the day. But it definitely played a part, man, for sure. I think about that a lot. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, I can just imagine. Yeah, that's
And then the next year he died. Yeah.
Jeez. And do you still have the sign? Like you said, you have a signed copies of the book?
I don't. I lost it so many years ago. Yeah. I wish I did though.
Dang. Okay. So you're, you have this huge start in poetry, get published in a magazine. Highlights magazine. When did that transition into going from like poetry to actually becoming music, right? And were you using some of your early poetry as like some of your first songs, or is there a difference between the two?
Um, I don't think that I had um, realized that there was a difference, and that kind of fades in and out for me throughout my life, because sometimes I feel like there is, and then in reality there's not. Um, but I feel like damn, I'm hot. What'd you say?
Is there like when you started writing your poetry, like how did that transition into music? Like were you using some of your poetry as like the basis for your first few songs, or was there a difference?
My first song was called "School's Out," and it was like a play off like a Will Smith song or something. Like it's like, you know, like like "School's Out," you know, it's like a Disney song, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but I was writing poetry and songs at the same time, but poetry was the thing that was getting me attention. That was the thing that, like, you know, I could write a poem and I could see like my teacher, I could get a reaction from my teacher or my friends. I hadn't discovered that with hip hop yet, you know, and that came about. Hip hop took over full time once I started to see that I could get more reactions from rapping and freestyling and
Mhm.
circles and things like that. That's when that kind of took over.
So what were you listening to that was influential for you at the time?
Um, when I was young,
Yeah.
Linkin Park and POD.
Dude, POD, yes.
Real shit.
Yeah. I feel so alive, right?
Straight up, man.
That's interesting. Well, and that was such a great time in music because some of that stuff was so novel, like especially when you think about Linkin Park, and then some of the stuff that they ended up doing with Jay-Z. They were just like really blurring the lines between like what rock and what rap was, and kind of where they put the
Absolutely.
metal, right?
Absolutely. Linkin Park is forever one of my all-time favorite bands, artists, whatever you want to call it. Like that was the first CD I ever bought when I was 11 years old. You know, it was Hybrid Theory. You know, bought it with my own money, and it was it's like it's just what it's still. I listened to In the End the other day, and that song is still like one of the greatest American songs ever written. It's fucked up.
And for anybody that appreciates hip hop, like give some respect to Mike Shinoda. That dude can.
For real. Like
Uh,
Shinoda's got bars.
um, so okay, so you're starting to write some of the music. You're being influenced by bands like POD and Linkin Park. You know, how would you describe your sound early on? Like, who were you trying to like? Were you trying to emulate those types of artists, or were you being influenced more by your poetry and like more deeper type of hip hop?
When I started getting into hip hop, I started really getting into hip hop and writing hip hop songs when I moved to Indianapolis. And at that point, I I was listening to like a wide range of music, but mainly at that time when I moved to Indianapolis, I was mainly listening to like just Rockefeller, Jay-Z, Rockefeller. Like, I mean, that was the height of, you know, the dynasty
Right.
at the time. You know, they had like 30 artists. You know, so we were just constantly listening to like Freeway and Beanie Siegel and Memphis Bleak and, you know, Jay. Um, yeah, that was kind of like where I was going, like with my raps at that time. I feel like that kind of helped me form like start to like kind of form my flows a little bit,
Right.
and cadences and different, you know, rhyme schemes and things like that.
Gotcha. And when you were out here doing that, who were the other local musicians? Like who were the people that you were kind of sharing these songs with, or kind of running around with?
uh when I first moved down here, the one person I was writing rhymes with um was a rapper named PD Boy, who is a local Indianapolis artist. He's really dope. Um, and he's been one of my oldest friends for 13 years. and we started writing rhymes together. We were writing songs over Jay-Z songs. So we didn't even have fucking beats. We just wanted to write so bad that we were writing songs over top his songs, like, you know, until we found a way to get beats, you know. So yeah, it was it was a process. But yeah, at the time I was writing with PD, and then from there, I started writing music with my band Indian City Weather, which was about 08 or 09.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what kind of music was that? Also, was that like a live hip hop thing, or was that?
Yeah, Indian City Weather was live hip hop. It was a full band, and we put out 2 albums, one in 2009, one in 2012. Yeah, it was just live hip hop, and then it was some spoken word as well. We did a lot of spoken word over like, and then some like live instrumental pieces and things like that. And we did that and at the time that was my main focus for a good 4 or 5 years. And during that time I was writing raps as well on the side. And then in 2012 I put out my first Sirius Blvck tape.
And were you an avid Harry Potter fan?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you already know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I assumed, but, you know, you don't want to make too big of an assumption, but
Nah, for sure. Because that's not the case. Like that Draco's the homie, but like his name ain't Draco because he fucked with Harry Potter. Like that's just his fucking name, you know. But like for me, like I just hooked with Harry Potter.
so funny enough, because of this whole COVID thing, I started like my wife's obsessed with Harry Potter, and I just started the book series like a week and a half ago. So I started at book 1. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been quite the adventure so far. So like every morning, because I'll read when she goes to bed, I'll just like run down and be like, "You have no idea what happened to Harry Potter." Like in these chapters, and she's like, I've read them all. I've seen every movie. I know exactly what happens. Let me tell you anyway. Okay, so 2012, you put out your first Sirius Blvck record. What was the music scene like here compared to where we are right now? I feel like we're kind of at this really nice point in hip hop, like local hip hop. We've got Truce Music Festival. You've got like Stephen Russell doing stuff with Laurie Party. You know, you've got musicians like yourself putting out very quality music. So like, what was it like in 2012?
2012. There were a lot of different things moving in 2012. At the time when I Googled Indianapolis hip hop, and in 2012, when I Googled Indianapolis hip hop, Rusty Redenbacher, Greg Granite, Freddie Buns, Oreo Jones, those are the names that came up. And I was already a big fan of like OJ, just through Peeping Game, and he was, you know, making great music even back then. And and then there was The Good Life, which was Little Introvert. She was throwing shows, and their people were throwing shows, and they were doing, you know, amazing. That's where I met E-Jazz and quite a few different people. At that time things were very different. Yeah, it wasn't. You could tell like the snowball hadn't like really kicked down the hill yet, but there was a lot of like, you know, those cats had obviously been working for a long time, you know, and putting out a lot of quality content. But I feel like when there was like a move 2012, 2013, things kind of like sped up. And then that's when we started our first collective, Ghost Town, which was me, John Stamps, PD Boy, K Nags, Naptown Nicey, and Draco, and a few other people. There was a lot of us, and we just kind of built it under this name, Ghost Town Collective. And we did that for a few years, and then Ghost Town Collective turned into Ghost Con Summer, because I put out my albums Nightcrawler and Light in the Attic on Rad Summer, and Heavy Gun was Great Granite and Freddie Buns collective, and Ghost Town collective was ours. So we put it together, took it on the road under the name Ghost Gun Summer.
Gotcha. And do you think that in those days you guys were formulating like the current sound that we have here in Indy? Like, do you think we have like a scene here that has its own sound, right? Like you think of like East Coast hip hop, West Coast hip hop, like you've got, you know, Texas hip hop, which is a whole nother thing, like Southern rap, things like that. You know, were you guys formulating our sound?
I feel like Indianapolis doesn't have a signature sound. I feel like there are so many different sounds that come from Indianapolis. And I think that's one of the special things about our city and our music that we make here. You know, it's like I like to say, you know, we have to drag inspiration out of the dirt, you know, because we don't have lights and distractions, and you know, we have vices, you know,
right.
We have passions. But I think there's something really special about Indianapolis music. I think it's honest in a lot of different ways. I think I feel like one of the, I guess if I had to put a signature on the sound, I feel like the music that I gravitate towards and the people that make it are just honest, you know, real.
Yeah, and that honesty, is it just like you're painting pictures, right? You're telling stories to these songs, and I think that if people were to not be honest, I mean, Indianapolis isn't that big of a city, right? Like we kind of know the types of things that go on. So if you weren't being honest, like people would see through that, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So you put out that album. You said a couple more, Nightcrawler, and what was the other one?
Light in the Attic, and then Major Threat. Put out an EP called Moon Talk in March of 2019, and then this is the new one.
And then each time, were you building upon some of the things that you had done on the previous albums?
In some ways, I feel like the one thing I've always tried to do is just experiment and feel like and figure out what works with my gut. And that's kind of what I make all my decisions on, and what ends up sticking, no matter how many times I revisit or revise a song. You know, usually like what hits me in the gut the hardest is what ends up like staying on the track. But I think like I've got it down to a process now, to where now I don't like to revise as much right off the bat. I kind of like to just go off the cusp and then sit with the songs and see if there's anything I would like to change like down the road. But yeah, these new tracks were, I feel like, very calculated.
And we'll dive into Godspeed now. How long did you work on this album before putting it out?
Hold on one second.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, while we're waiting here, I'll just cue up some music here. Oh, we're back.
Sorry.
No worries.
Duty calls.
So the question was, how long did you work on Godspeed before it came out?
So Godspeed was a collection. Godspeed was a collection of songs, of about 20 songs, and it's 2 projects. And then within that collection of songs, I started working on the album Tomahawk. Tomahawk was going to be my next project. That was what I was putting all my energy into. In the midst of creating Tomahawk, I recorded 20 plus songs for it. I figured out what was going to go on the Tomahawk LP. And from there, I had this collection of songs. And they all were within the same concept, because I was speaking on the same things throughout all of those songs in a lot of different ways. A lot of like continuous underlying themes. So I decided to take the tracks that didn't fit for Tomahawk and create a prequel in a way, without calling it a prequel. Right. And we ended up putting together Godspeed.
And so here, just right off the bat, some of the things that I love, the whole album is 20 minutes long, right?
Yeah.
Which is awesome. The longest track, if you guys haven't heard, is only 2 minutes and 30 seconds long. And you think about, I think this was early last year. Earl dropped an album that was like 13 minutes long or something. And some of his songs are like 37 seconds, right? And this is a lot more, there's so much more thought. It feels like it's a cohesive piece of music that Godspeed was versus like, I don't know what Earl was doing, but it was it was cool, but a lot of it was just like, he's just throwing things together. It felt like at certain points. And
It felt like a definite, like a stream of consciousness almost. Yeah.
And he'd probably slap me for just saying that he just like threw some stuff together, because I thought that into it. But just the title itself, Godspeed, right, is an expression of good wishes to someone, starting on a journey, right? So I started to break down some of your songs and start to find some of these common themes that would kind of play into that. And I don't know how much thought you put into like titles or all of the lyrics, making sure that it's going to fit this kind of overall theme of the title of the album. But I'll kind of just let you take it from there. But maybe we can play maybe 30 seconds from the opening track, or is there a different track that you think we should start with, and then we'll dive in?
No, dive in from the top. Yeah.
All right. So Too Legit. Here we go.
Future fit, cut a check, let's get rich, yeah. Ain't no shit, too legit, just to quit, yeah. Put in my stairs, I might dance, I might sit back. In my bag, on brag, on chit. Walking on ice, bitch, I just might slip. Indiana boys, and now we back up in a mix. Okay, that bitch, jumping back like 2006. Keep your aqua energy, you throwing in my mix. Okay, I fuck with you, but it's more the politics.
All right, that was a little bit of Too Legit. Love the way that starts. It's a good start to the album. So let's go ahead and jump in right there. So talk a little bit about Too Legit.
Yeah, man. So that's the intro to the project. That's the last song I actually did for the project. I just needed the intro track, and I really wanted something that would make that would add just like a dope juxtaposition to the end of the album. And I ended up on Too Legit. There are a lot of the same themes. Like my daughter, it kind of plays she's like the guiding voice throughout the project. That's why you hear her frequently. And it's, pushed against, me thinking about my grandfather being a Vietnam War vet, and losing his house, and going through all of the things he did, raising 6 kids on a steel mill salary in Gary, Indiana, and then thinking about him having my father, and my father being an alcoholic, and then my stepfather being, a cheating, manipulative, person, and just kind of not having all of these different role models in my life, and kind of the domino falling on, me realizing like I'm just going to do what I have to do to take care of my daughter, take care of my family.
Right. And so some of the things that, so am I wrong here with a journey being one of the themes?
Absolutely. I think it's the whole album is, like an ode to like my journey so far as a Black artist in Indiana, and coming and growing into being a father, yeah. So absolutely the journey, but it's about like Godspeed is like this is the new journey. This is the journey that has never been taken before.
Right.
Yeah.
And I like the guitar work in there. And I don't know, does your daughter say something? She says something about rock and roll.
She says you better get your rock and roll. Yeah.
Okay. I feel silly asking, but what does she mean by that?
I don't know. She just said it. I never asked her. I could ask her though, but she I have just so many snippets of her just saying just random badass things. And that was just like one of those like random badass things she said. She's like, you better get your rock and roll. And I just took it as like, you better get your rock and roll because we're about to take it back, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Right? And when you break it down like that, it's like, take your rock, whatever that is, and let's roll. Like, let's start the journey. This is the first track. And
Yeah.
you start to think about journeys and kind of like what those can mean. And you know, you talk about smoking quite a bit on the album, and that can be seen as an escape, and escape is a journey, right? Like you go somewhere else from where you're at. And one of the lines that jumped out at me is like, sometimes I don't like thinking about it because the past hurts, right? So it's almost like you're like kind of again taking this journey, this escapism journey, to like get away from that stuff that you were talking about at the beginning of the track, some of those things that you just went into. So I thought it was a very solid start to the album, and then that goes into Clockwork, which just slaps. Clockwork is awesome, and I think from what I picked up, there's a lot of darkness, kind of that clouds this whole album, right? Like one of the biggest things that I picked up on, just like sleep, death, the devil, and religion plays in this huge like good versus bad. And when you start thinking about the past, there's a couple of other songs where you start talking about the devil on your back and kind of not looking back there. But so I'm going to play a little bit of Clockwork just because it's one of my favorite tracks. I have an asterisk on it because I like it. So we'll play a little bit of that and let you talk about it.
On the raincoat, great flood, different strokes in the same boat. Different quote for the bass and the maestro. Thoughts travel to a place that I can't go. Brittle bones and the stones in the halo. Little clones, MK Ultra for payload. Way options of hope, but the scale broke. Devil pull me through the dirt to my elbows. Watch smoke roll out for the top of the roof. Bunch of beer bulls so my dogs go roof. Try it off 100 proof going in the booth. Nigga try and shine, can't even speak truth. Granddad roll around with the deuce. Keita and her mama stay strapped up too. Black American history X in the flesh. Fuck being broke, territory land over checks. I'm ready to drown in the abyss. For a throne made of bones in the crown, it doesn't fit. What if a pocket with bacon? We just take it from the rich. We the ones making all the hits, taking all the rich shit. You know what it's like waiting to exist. Waiting patient in the basement, trying out a fucking list. Put it all on the line, elevated up quick. Money on the mind, meditated on the bread.
Man, I feel so bad for people. Last week I was riding around downtown going to pick up something essential, and I was blasting this song.
Oh yeah, that's what it's there for.
So talk about Clockwork.
Yeah, man. After kind of laying some groundwork and like laying a vibe, I really wanted something just offbeat that was gonna kind of just punch people in the face. And that's kind of what and that's all the lyrics are, a punch in the face. You know, everything is just striking and sharp. You know, it's just sharp edges. You know, like it's like funhouse mirrors and knives. You know, but there's again, there are a lot of the same themes. You know, like granddad roll around with the deuce, like because he did. You know, like my grandfather's my fondest and oldest memories of my grandfather, who turns 100 in June. Is him me waking up in the morning and him like cleaning his shotguns. Like his closet was Jordans and guns, you know, like he was a Vietnam War vet, you know, like he and back in those days, like you had to protect your family, you know. And I think that's just a real like a big theme, you know, is just protection, and protecting the things that you love. And realizing like that is a necessity, you know. And Keita and her mama stay strapped up too, you know, because her mother is you know, was in the army and is also a Second Amendment advocate. And when the time comes, Keita gonna know how to strap up as well, just in case when she got to take care of one of these motherfuckers, because like dudes out here is crazy. you know, and I'm like, I'm a man raising, you know, a little girl, you know, who is going to grow into a young woman. I wanted to know how to protect herself.
Definitely. And
Yeah.
so you start to see some of these themes coming back, and just like the circularity of a clock. One of my favorite parts about this album is it kind of starts and ends in the same way. You take one of the lyrics from the first song, and it kind of lets the end of the album kind of go out with it, which I love. And you kind of like tone them down. It's awesome. So like this clock, this circularity of things we start to see as a theme popping up. And I think my favorite theme comes into this next track when we go into Twin Peaks, and you get the theme of like dreaming and sleeping and death and not really knowing where you're at, right? And so I think I'm getting chills right now, honestly, because the album starts to take on another layer from here, because now this theme really starts to open up, and you get it in several other songs, right? And like it starts to get a little bit darker and darker as you work your way through the album. So talk a little bit about Twin Peaks.
Yeah, Twin Peaks. I wanted to, just in terms of aesthetically, I wanted to go from a hard punch in the face to like a lighthearted, dreamy, like pop song. You know, and I'd had this Matthias Young beat for probably 2 years now, and I'd written probably 5 different songs on it, and all of them were just I'm attacking or I'm rapping, you know. And when I went back in the studio to finish the album, I really wanted to just try something new on it. So I decided to like write a pop song to it. And it ended up turning out great. And yeah, I mean, Twin Peaks, it's like obviously that, you know, Twin Peaks is like, you know, a play on death and, you know, just like dreams and dreamscape. And I think like that's, it's also like, you know, a love song. So it's like, you don't know if you're awake or not, you know. It's like I got the call, but like I don't even know if the call is real, you know, and like I'm still trying to figure it out. And then from there, it's like did I wake up or did I just go even further, you know?
Right. And I hate to ruin the surprise for people, but like you kind of leave people hanging at the end with that same question, right?
Yeah.
Whether or not it was a dream. So I'm just going to play real quick, just a couple seconds from Twin Peaks. So this is Twin Peaks.
Fell asleep, watching Twin Peaks. Had a dream I ended up 6 feet. And I don't know if I ever woke up. And then you called up and said you missed me. I won't believe you said it was the real thing. Cause I get lost in the glitches that my head made. I want you back for like all the bad reasons. Sitting around in my head, I can't think straight.
Man, I feel bad cutting any one of these off. Yeah. So yeah, Twin Peaks, standout track, and then we get into Away,
Yes.
which I've got another asterisk by Away, and this is probably the like the brightest song maybe on the album. So talk a little bit about Away, because this has a lot of that time and space and kind of journey type themes.
Yeah. Away was produced by my engineer, Philo T. This was a song where I wanted to, after going from the bop, I wanted to kind of do like some lyrical exercise and just kind of like rap a little bit, just playing around with those themes a lot. And this one is kind of like, it just feels like you're bouncing on a trampoline, you know, like you're already in the air. Yeah, this was a fun track. This one kind of was just, I felt like this was more like not necessarily a break. It still fits within the concept and the theme, but I think of it more as kind of like just like a intermission layer.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's give people a peek here. This is Away.
Blah blah, Philo. I didn't need to get away. Buffet time and space, go through time and space. Fell flat on my face into the floor, into the basement. Had to reach inside and reignite that fiery place. Had to be the match and spark the flame and find a way. Giving my life away, all of my heart away. My time to sell. Maybe I'll try to say. Can look like Nick, one of my pieces, what do I like to say? Ain't decisive and so right. Underway, loving my bitch, she all of my business, all on the head list. Put a yo nigga, they making a wish list, can't go get shit. All of my nigga, they got the business, all on the mission. Counting up figures and starting the business, more than a biscuit. Picked up and dropped off a couple habits on the way though. Had to leave some people back, so I went in my day though. Had to lay low, stacking a peso under the table. Frame stable, cut the cord for your cable. Got on my nigga, yeah we came up, under the ground, running the bag up. Fuck your bad luck, running the town, put on their neck. Put on the gate, came from the underground. Leveling up is a hell of a drug. It's me with that run around.
Man. Yeah. So like I said, the brightest song kind of as we get to that point that was, I ran to this album the other day and that one really stood out. So then we kind of go into Floodlight that kind of blows things down a little bit. I was having trouble kind of breaking this one down and just trying to figure out kind of the meaning behind like what the floodlight represents, because this one arguably in my opinion was probably the most religious undertones in there, and then there's like one line specifically, and it wasn't you, but it was like suicide when I'm with my bros. I thought that was a very powerful line, but I'll kind of let you take it away.
Yeah. Floodlight was another Matthias beat that I had for a while. Definitely a lot of religious undertones in this song. In my verse specifically, I feel like I'm just talking about, the transfer after death, so to speak. Talk about my grandmother. I just talk about.
Lindsay is here.
Awesome.
No, you come and check.
No, you good. I'm good, baby. You go ahead.
Yeah, she sounds just like she does in the album.
All right, sorry. Yeah, a lot of religious undertones in this song. In my verse especially. I feel like I'm always battling demons. And I think that's one thing. It's like the whole album I'm battling these demons, and I kind of go up and down, as we all do. But I think like the guiding voice again is Kiki. But yeah, that album I'm really just kind of questioning, religion and my spirituality and where I stand with a lot of that, because I do consider myself a very spiritual person, but that fluctuates. Sometimes I don't feel very spiritual. Sometimes I don't feel like I believe in anything, but
and I think that's a universal kind of thing that a lot of people can connect with. I know certainly there's times where it's just like, what are we doing here? Right. Like,
yeah.
What is
and I think also I feel like just dealing with Black identity, and Black, referring to Black history, and knowing how much we don't know about ourselves. Black history in school starts at slavery, and Black people have been here long before that. So I think there's definitely a lot of that, those undertones there, just kind of that dealing with that confliction. And I think Baby Ebony's verse complements that unintentionally, I might add, so well. His verse is one of my favorite parts in the album, to be honest.
Well, and I certainly can't speak to any struggles because I don't I'm brown, right? Mexican American. I'm not African American individual there, but I think like some of these tones that he's talking about, and again, I'll go back to that line that just like jumped out at me because I'm like trying to break this down. It's like suicide when I'm with my bros. Like I said, it's almost like you're willingly choosing to put yourself in harm's way when you're hanging out with your friends, right? Like that it could lead to danger, but you do it anyway, right?
Absolutely.
Like you're putting your life on the line to go hang out with your friends, right?
Yeah.
And that's just like the truth of, because how does he open up stone cold how we live in these streets, right? Like struggle is real for people.
Yeah.
Right? Like it truly is. Yeah, so that was a good track as well. And then Cross My Heart. I had an asterisk next to this one, just another kind of standout song for me. Explain that one a little bit.
Yeah, Cross My Heart was a fuck you to anybody benefiting from like this corporatocracy. You know, it's like the song is dedicated to rich people. Anybody benefiting from the corporate exodus right now in America, as we sit here waiting, not knowing what's going to happen next. You know, I mean that whole song, it just speaks to the things we have to do on the ground floor, like the things we have to do on the ground floor while they're eating good. You know, so when you know that, go back and listen to it, and you'll definitely hear a lot of different things.
And kind of perfect timing for a song like that, right? Like I think that message is probably going to ring a little bit more true as we go through what's going on. And you've got artists and musicians and people in the service industry who don't know what's going on, where they're going to get paid, how they're going to get paid, what the hell is a stimulus check. But then you have like ostensibly big corporations, these corporatocracy that will still get bailed out, right? Like they know how they're going to eat, they know how they're going to get paid.
I mean, obviously they do. Thousands of CEOs have stepped down in the past year alone. Like just in the past year alone, Jeff Bezos, for everybody from Jeff Bezos to the Walton family, figured out how to like make money or drop stocks right before the stock market went wild, and managed to make another however many tens of millions of dollars. You know, while the rest of us are sitting here fucked. So I just wanted to write a song dedicated to it.
I love it. So the track 30 for 30, I wrote in quotes hard. This is probably the hardest track on the album, in my opinion. You use a couple different tones or voices on this one as well. So a lot of dark like references like devil, Lucifer, devils. So talk a little bit about this track, and then we'll go into a little bit of that one because I really love 30 for 30.
Yeah. So 30 for 30 is calling it 30 for 30 is just an ode to me turning 30 years old this year. And the whole song is me recollecting traumatic experiences, experiences that have still stick with me that have stuck with me throughout my whole life and still stick with me today. Then I reference those experiences in detail in the tracks. So yeah. And then the hook is just, 10-4 copy that. Like, I know people are gonna understand this. If you hear me, if you know, you know. If you don't, you don't, but 10-4 copy that. Naptown, we own it,
We'll let them hear. Here we go.
Black up in it, feel like I don't want them. You could hear the wolves howling in between the sides. I would probably bump a little scrappy, no problem. Niggas out that Madonna, nigga do what they wanna. Papa was a deacon, he would probably on some bullshit. Cashing out, demon fucking in the pulpit. Rolling the Portuguese with a couple bros I went to school with. They coming down to tell me he had a pistol, so he pulled it. 10 years later, shit, I'm thinking about it still. Wow, niggas in the net still worried about the deal. Smoking up like a hereditary scale. Hold up in a scope, this game's a predatory kill. Stay up on my grave, I was just made of glass. Wasn't made to last. December 4th, had to straight Lucifer just to fade to black. Racing cash, patient to the money from a jaded past. Breaking bad, shaking devils off my shoulders, chasing bad. Get up, get that bag. Covered in mud, look at my hands. Covered it.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, man. Yeah, that's definitely one of the hardest track on the record to me. One of my favorites as well.
And then that takes us into where we're kind of getting towards the end of the album here, Voyager, which again kind of plays into that. If we're going to go back to Godspeed being this beginning of a journey, right? Like this salutation as someone begins a journey. Voyager, I think, is the perfect iteration of that theme, right? And I think specifically on this one, a lot of dream talk, talk about smoking, things like that. So talk a little bit about Voyager.
Yeah, Voyager, it was like the 30 for 30 was the buildup of this tension, and Voyager is the drop, and you land on a boat and you're in an ocean, and you're headed out. That song was kind of like, it felt like a stream of consciousness in a lot of different ways. It was like me talking to myself. Like if I was doing a therapy session and I was the therapist and the person on the couch, and it's just a lot of it feels like a lot of realizations that certain things that I feel are placed on my shoulders aren't mine to hold. The realization that past pain or passed down pain doesn't have to be mine. The sins of the father don't have to be mine. We're not niggas on a boat no more.
Right.
Like we're free to be and live however and whoever the fuck we want. I think there's just power in that.
I almost felt like there was a little bit of like tension, almost this confrontation. You talk about looking in the mirror, asking who the fuck is you, and then talk about you've been fighting this war, right? Which can be seen as like this struggle of like, okay, my life can go in like one of these two directions. And you talk a lot about like demons from the past kind of being with you on this album. So I kind of saw that as that kind of crest of that point there.
And it's kind of like there's been this tug of war the whole album, and finally like there's no more tug, like it's done, and now you're just waiting in the water. And then that song closes out, of course, with the guiding voice, Akita original song. She freestyled on the fly one day, just to take you out the right way.
And what does she say there at the end? Does she say, "My friends are going to save the world"?
She does. She says, I think she says, "Light the sky, yeah, yeah, yeah. My friends are gonna save the world."
Yeah. Like ending on that positivity, especially coming from like literally coming from the mouth of a child, right? Like that's the future. It's like her and her friends have that it's actual possibility.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then it kind of ends again. We'll go back to it like this circle, right? So nuclear family is like, I mean, talk about that the actual meaning, right? A family group consisting of two parents and their children, right? So it's like this concept of like the all-American family. But this song is in everything so nicely because it brings the end back to the beginning.
I wanted to write a song that was just an ode to the nuclear family. Just in today's society, there's just a lot of talks about abolishing the nuclear family and how it is in today's climate, and just with what we know, it doesn't make sense because not every family is the nuclear family, and the nuclear family leaves out a lot of families. But I grew up in that family, and there's just I have a nostalgic love for it, and it's like, and that's what my like that I think of my little family as a nuclear family, you know, and I wanted to just write an ode to that. And at the same time, me and my partner were splitting, and I was uh you know, dealing with those emotions and figuring out how uh, parenting as a single parent or as you know a single father would look. Uh, you know, so it was kind of like a just a send off
Like
in some ways.
some nostalgia there for kind of how you grew up and this wanting for maybe that's how you had thought that your life as an adult would have played out. I think it's interesting to end it with "It was all a dream." You were calling me, and if I fall asleep, then I know it was all a dream, right? Like, you kind of have this disillusionment of that's kind of how you grew up, but you wake up and things kind of aren't like that anymore, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and that's okay. You know.
Ex- Yeah. So I want to play that a little bit of that, and I might skip forward. Just I think kind of bringing it back to that hook is I love that part. So
Absolutely. I'm with that.
Backslide, like, we tryna backslide, backstroke, so got the smoke from last night. City drown, drinking water as we capsize. Float it down, and I started feeling baptized. Swear to God, never heard a fucking black line.
Perry, Indiana, we was waiting on a call from the good Lord. Hieroglyphic paintings on the wall. My granddaddy, 40 acres in a ball. He was off world, swinging lightsabers for the cause. Came in drunk, knocking pictures off the wall. Baby, I'm store, I've been sleeping on my phone. All that we got in the end, yeah, that's all. In the days, baby, we not answering the call.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, when I listened to the album all the way through, it took me a second to be like, did I start this over? Did I imagine this lyric being in it before? So cool to kind of catch that. And for anybody who like doesn't listen to albums start to finish, like this is the exact reason why you should, right? Like you get rewarded for making it all the way to the end without kind of like skipping. You see these like things that were purposefully done.
Absolutely. I thought that would be a nice little Easter egg for anybody who was paying attention enough, because it's so boppy.
Oh no. He was just getting ready to make a really good point, guys. I'll put some music back on until we get Sirius Black back on, so we'll finish this song out.
Sorry about that.
It's all good.
So where were we?
Boppy was the last thing you said.
Yeah. I wanted to do something just a little boppy on the last track. I just wanted to end on a high note. I feel like this track, it feels like you could be going deeper into a dream, or you could be waking up from it, you know. And that line, like those lines specifically, I just thought like they're so boppy in themselves, but like when you really catch that the second time around. One second, sorry about that.
You're good. So this is the part where we talk about
It was all a dream. You were calling me.
My apologies, I had to pay rent. The grind don't stop. I thought those lines specifically are very special to me because I'm talking about my grandmother And the 30 years she had a duplex in Gary, Indiana, you know, with like hieroglyphics and Black Jesus paintings on the wall, you know. And my grandfather, you know, losing, you know, his house after coming back from the Vietnam War, you know, and being treated as half a human, you know, and then for me to end up here,
Mhm.
you know, that was a journey, and I wouldn't be here without those sacrifices, you know. So I thought it would just be dope. It would be a dope Easter egg to re-acknowledge that at the end of the album, so it kind of circles back around.
And did you know when you were going to do that that you wanted to like pitch it down in that way, or
Oh
did you
yeah.
play around with it a couple different varieties, or no?
With that, I knew I was definitely gonna pitch it down for sure. Like I heard it that way on that beat. Like that was one of the things I was like, I gotta bring that line back. And we're definitely gonna like screw it up a little bit.
Yeah, I love it. Like I said, perfect way for me to like play that album in its completion. So I really appreciated it.
Oh yeah.
Where can people find your music? Where can people follow you? Where can they donate, purchase, help you out as a musician to make sure that you continue making music, man? Because you do a great job.
Thank you. My new album is out now, Godspeed. You can purchase it on Bandcamp at the moment. That would be appreciated. Or you can go stream it. It's on all streaming services. Subscribe to me on YouTube, Sirius Blvck, at Instagram, or at Instagram. My Instagram is at Sirius Blvck, Blvck. Twitter, Sirius X Black. Come hit me up. Let's link. Let's collaborate. Let's talk. Let's make some moves.
I love it. I think you're on your way to help put Indianapolis hip hop on the map, man. This was a great album, and I enjoyed listening to it through just to kind of be able to talk to you about it. So
thank you, man. I appreciate the time you took to really like break it down with me.
no, for sure. I love music, so I'm a true fan. Thank you again. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a great weekend. You guys, Godspeed is out now, all streaming services. Go check out his Bandcamp. Purchase a track, purchase the whole thing if you can. Let's help him out. Great musician coming out of Indianapolis, Indiana. Sirius Blvck. Thank you, my man.
Much love, Drink Culture. Have a good one, y'all.